Good morning, students. Today is May 6th, and I think it's Wednesday. I don't remember anymore. Give me a minute. Yeah, it's Wednesday. All right, it's May 6th, and it's Wednesday. We are going to be talking about toxic relationships today, and we're going to identify some toxic traits. So, we're just going to jump right into it. Because yesterday we talked about dating, and when you date, there's a potential chance that you might come in contact with somebody who is toxic or not good for your health. So, starting with that, let's talk about the first toxic trait, people pleaser. And some of you might be wondering, why is that a toxic trait? All they're doing is trying to help people. Well, if you're a people pleaser, it's not bad to help people, and I want you to understand that. But people pleasers help people so much that they neglect their own health and their own problems. So let's say you have a huge test coming up, and people keep asking you for help. Rather than studying for your test, you feel obligated to help other people. Now, you start helping everybody else, but you never take care of studying for your test. So what eventually happens? Well, it's test day, now you've never studied, so now your mental health, your anxiety is all going up, and then you might fail, which leads you to depression. It also makes people feel overwhelmed. They feel like they have to help people. These people tend to be taken advantage of because people know that they'll do anything to help other people. So they constantly go to these people for to help them when they could probably figure it out themselves. So if you're a people pleaser, that tends to be a little bit of a toxic trait just because it puts you at risk and people take advantage of them. Is it going to be somebody who hurts other people? No, and we're going to get into that in a minute here too. Number 2, the enabler. All right, this is what most middle school students are. You're all enablers. I want you to think of the time that you're at the lunch table. And we all know that as a teacher, I used to be a middle school student at a lunch table, and I know what my friends made me do. But you have a friend, and he says, you won't do it. And then he says some other things, and I think you kids know what that means. Something that you all say to each other to get somebody to do something, like sissy, or you say something else to get them to go and try to do it. What they are doing is actually enabling you to be bad. What do teachers do? If I'm sitting there, I'm going to tell you, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. I'm not encouraging you to do something bad. Enablers encourage you to do something that you know is wrong or you know will get you in trouble. They're toxic because they don't really care what happens to you. They just want to see you get in trouble. And as you get older, other things that enablers might do is they might have, let's think of 16, 17-year-olds and high school students. Drugs start to become a problem. Why? Well, there's one kid in the group that gets his hands on cigarettes or something. Now he has cigarettes, you're in the bathroom, and suddenly he puts you in a position where he says, hey, do you want to smoke? He is enabling you to make a bad choice. Enablers are bad people to hang around because they put you in situations that are going to hurt your health, whether you get in trouble or whether they might try to turn you on drugs. That is what an enabler does. That is another toxic trait. The fixer. This is somebody who always tries to fix somebody's problems. Kind of like the people pleaser. The people pleaser does things to make people happy. The fixer, when somebody complains of a problem, they'll try to go and fix the problem. There's 2 ways this can go. It's not your responsibility to fix other people's problems. And if you're fixing everybody else's problems, or if you're trying to please people like a people pleaser, you're avoiding your own and you're not taking the time to take care of your stuff. That can be an issue. I'm not saying never help people, but I'm saying make sure you have a balance. The other thing with the fixer is if they hear something and they try to fix somebody's problem who didn't want their help, you're actually hurting your relationship with that person. So let's imagine that somebody told you a problem, they're like, man, I just got this issue, and I had a fight with my girlfriend or something, and then you go and try to fix the problem. You just stepped into somebody else's issue that maybe they didn't want you to help with. Maybe they just wanted to complain a little bit, get it off their chest, so they can think about how to handle it themselves. So fixers kind of insert themselves in places that aren't really their place to help. So this can hurt their relationship with their friend that they want to help, but it's very important that you learn that some things you're not meant to fix. Sometimes people have to deal with their own problems, and that's, you got to be able to identify when they want help, okay? Clinger. You all make jokes about this. This is a needy, dependent person. They feel the need to have another person in order to feel valued. They lack independence. The reason this can be a huge problem, and this goes into more advanced stuff, is when somebody feels that they have to be with another person in order to feel valued, and that was one of the essential dating skills. When I said your value is not determined by who you date or if you're dating, because some people feel like they're worthless if they're not dating. This tends to lead into into serious toxic relationships, because if somebody feels that they have to be in a relationship and they get value from the relationship, they're going to date anybody, not anybody, but they will date people who are not in their best interest, and they will hang on to the relationship as long as they can. So the clinger, who really wants to be in a relationship, let's say they get with a physically abusive partner and this person is beating on them. Well, if they feel that they're worthless without the relationship, they're going to try to cling to that partner even though terrible things are happening, okay? Because they feel they need it. And the other thing with clingers is it makes the other person feel suffocated. Sometimes we all like our independence. Sometimes we all like being alone. That's okay to be alone and to have a little bit of independence. But if somebody's constantly suffocating them, it's going to hurt that other person's mental health, and they might get a little bit frustrated with the other person and go off on them or say mean things that they don't mean. So being a clinger is also a toxic trait, okay? And it's really important that you find the balance between independence and socializing with other people, okay? We're getting into really deep toxic relationships. We got controllers. These are possessive, jealous, domineering people, okay? They command others what to do and they don't share. So in a serious toxic relationship, let's imagine there's a guy and a woman, they've been dating for a long time, and every time she tries to go hang out with her friends, the guy says, no, I hate you. Not I hate you. I hate your friends, and I don't like them. You shouldn't hang out with them. You need to be with me. So, what's he doing? He's controlling her decisions if she follows that. And by controlling her decisions and separating her from her friends, she's actually losing her support group. Okay? The people that would help her. Okay? And every time he takes away something, he's actually becoming more powerful in the relationship, and this is how toxic relationships get to a very serious point where sometimes the abuse could lead into death and murder, and that's why it's really important that we talk about these things. So the controller is going to try to control all the decisions, and some of those decisions are actually going to take away your support. Things like, I remember when I was at a domestic violence speech, this woman had said that the guy was not only extremely controlling, he said, hey, we're not going to visit your family anymore because I don't like them. So what did he do? He cut her off from those people. She wouldn't even text those people. So who do you go to tell your problems when the person that you think you love is cutting off all your support? That's why this can be extremely dangerous, and this is why it's really important that you identify these things with a couple of dates. And this is why it's really important when you're dating somebody, it doesn't mean that you're boyfriend and girlfriend. You need to find out about the other person. So that's one thing. Center. What this means is we're talking about people who are really self-centered. They're all about themselves. They never care about what other people do. All right? They're always the middle of attention. They have to be about everything. These are people that we call are egotistical. Another word would be narcissistic, but that's a little too advanced. They only care about themselves. They don't show interest in what other people do. They want to be the center of attention. Anytime somebody has an accomplishment, they have to one-up them. These are just people who are very self-centered. It's a toxic trait. It's not fun to hang around. There's that. Then we have abusers. Abusers are anybody who is physically abusive, so they beat on the person, mentally abusive, so they insult the person, making fun of their insecurities, and they emotionally put people down. So let's imagine that Mr. Durando was very self-conscious about his hair and how his hairline is receding, and it's just such a terrible thing. Like, honestly, I don't really care, but let's imagine that I would have my feelings hurt every time somebody would make fun of that. If somebody that I was in a relationship made fun of it every single day, don't you think that would hurt my mental health? Or if they were making fun of something that you're self-conscious about, maybe somebody has a birthmark that they don't like talking about. If somebody made fun of that every day, that's going to make the person feel terrible. That's what mental and emotional abuse is. You pick something that the other person is uncomfortable about, and you keep tearing them apart. And this makes them devalue themselves. They feel self-conscious. This hurts their mental health. So that's what mental and emotional abuse is. They basically find a trait or something and they make you feel terrible about yourself. Okay? And that's a type of abuse, and it's a very, very dangerous type of abuse. Okay? Liar. They lie. Don't hang out with liars. That's a simple one. And promise breakers. These are people who always say that they're going to fix something or I'll be there, then they never are. What they're doing is they're giving you a false sense of hope and saying, like, you can count on me to be there. And if they're not going to be there one or two times, they're not going to change in the future. People use promises and they use these deep words like, oh, don't worry, I'll always be there and I'll fix it this next time, to keep people trapped in relationships or toxic relationships. So if somebody is always no-showing, opting out at the last minute, these are people that are toxic because you can't really trust them. Now, I'm not saying somebody who had a serious event and they're like, hey, look, I can't come because this just happened. That's different. I'm talking about the person that every time you make plans, they bail out on them, or the person that never just owns up to their promises or what they say they're going to do. These are toxic people because they're going to take advantage of that. They're always going to make promises they know they can't keep, and they are always going to use the people that are around them. So, getting into more serious things, why do people engage in toxic relationships? And why do they stay? So, like I said, I went to a domestic violence speech where a woman was talking about how she was in a physically and mentally abusive relationship for 3 to 4 years. Think about that. Somebody beat on another person for 3 years, and they stayed all 3 years, and they thought that other person loved them. Now, that might not click in your head, but you have to understand what's going on when somebody gets in this relationship. One, they might be in fear for their life. When a toxic relationship gets really, really bad, there are times when people get beat so bad that they go to the hospital and they're afraid that if they tell them what actually happened, it'll make it worse. This woman that I went and listened to, she was in the hospital 7 times, and she had lost half her foot because of just how badly this person had beat on her. That's why it's really serious and really important that we understand these things so we never get stuck in one ourselves. So at one point, she was afraid of her life. She had to get the police involved, and she had to have her family, she had to get a restraining order, and this took like a year or two just to get all this done. So there was a lot of fear that happened, and that's why she stayed after so long. She was scared. The other thing, believe they were the problem. If somebody's constantly insulting you and tearing down your self-worth, at points you're going to think that you're the problem. You're the reason this is happening. And she would say that he had hurt her confidence so much that she thought she was the issue and that nobody else would ever love her. And that was part of the problem, and that was part of the reason why she stayed there. 3, thinking they can change the person, and this is a big one. People often think that they can change the person into being a better person. And that's just not true. You can't change people, especially people that make promises and break them. It's part of the manipulation that toxic relationships do. So, that's another reason. They think that they can change the person. And this is why they're stuck in the relationship and can't leave. So, how do we, that's 14 minutes. Okay. We're going to call that it for the day. If you have any questions, email me. no homework. I just want you guys to just take these lessons for what they are and have a great day.